Hey everyone, Dr. Nardi here, and welcome back to Office Hours. Today's topic is terrorism, a crime distinct from other homicides due to its psychological and symbolic nature. Terrorism not only devastates communities physically, but profoundly impacts psychological well being, creating widespread fear, uncertainty, and terror. When we talk about terrorism, precise definitions matter. According to federal law, terrorism involves the unlawful use of force or violence against people or property to intimidate or coerce a government or civilians, aiming for political or social objectives. Another useful definition of terrorism describes it as a theatrical crime designed to create symbolic and psychological effects beyond the immediate harm, aiming for broader societal impacts. Regardless of the definition, terrorism typically shares certain elements. It involves force or violence, is perpetrated by individuals or groups, specifically targets civilian populations, intends to instill fear, and ultimately aims to coerce changes in political or social positions. Terrorism can be categorized based on affiliations. Domestic terrorism refers to acts carried out by individuals or groups within the US without direct foreign involvement. Such incidents often overlap with hate crimes. For instance, the 2009 Fort Hood shooting by Army Major Nidal Hassan is considered a case of domestic terrorism. International terrorism involves violent acts that violate US criminal laws and are influenced by foreign entities, governments, or organizations. The September 11th attacks in 2001 remain the most prominent example, demonstrating terrorism's profound psychological and global impact. Terrorist groups and individuals are classified into various categories, including right-wing extremists, left-wing groups, special interest groups, radical environmentalists, and those utilizing nuclear, biological, or chemical methods. Understanding these distinctions helps us recognize the wide-ranging motivations and potential threats. Terrorists themselves can also be categorized individually based on their motivations. Rationally motivated terrorists plan logically for strategic outcomes. An example would be the Weather Underground, which engaged in deliberate acts to further political goals. Psychologically motivated terrorists act based on personal psychological issues or emotional disturbances. Theodore Kaczynski, known as the Unabomber, exemplifies this type due to his isolated behavior and deep-seated psychological motivations. Culturally motivated terrorists are driven primarily by their cultural or religious beliefs. The Taliban, for example, engages in terrorism rooted deeply in cultural and ideological convictions. Typical terrorist group members and leaders share certain characteristics. Most are young males, typically between the ages of 20 and 29, and unmarried. Interestingly, research shows they generally do not have major mental illnesses or serious substance abuse problems. Why do people become terrorists? The quest for significance theory suggests individuals join terrorist organizations seeking meaning or recognition. Meanwhile, terror management theory proposes that participation in terrorism can reduce individuals' anxieties about death. Suicide terrorism, involving acts of martyrdom, differs psychologically from other violent crimes. These individuals rarely exhibit antisocial behaviors typical of other violent criminals. They're highly focused, dedicated, and determined to ensure their mission succeeds. Violent extremists tend to have experienced negative life events, feelings of isolation, low self-esteem, and often struggle academically or professionally. Nonviolent extremists, however, may sympathize with a cause without resorting to violent action. Becoming a terrorist often involves a gradual process known as radicalization. Frequently, influenced by peer pressure and a shift toward increasingly risky behaviors. Terrorist organizations often target vulnerable individuals who have low cognitive complexity, making them susceptible to radical ideas. Effective terrorist leaders are typically charismatic, maintaining strong organizational hierarchies and clear chains of command. Followers are expected to show absolute obedience and loyalty, reinforcing group cohesion and effectiveness. Lone wolf terrorists have become increasingly common and pose unique threats. These individuals act independently, without formal affiliation to groups or direct orders from terrorist leaders. Examples include the Boston Marathon bombers and the Fort Hood shooter. Lone wolf terrorists typically operate alone, carefully plan their attacks, and are often emotionally disturbed. They exhibit poor social skills and interpersonal difficulties, frequently claiming allegiance to larger ideologies without formal ties. Understanding terrorists' psychological justifications is crucial. Cognitive restructuring allows terrorists to morally justify their actions. This includes moral justification, using euphemistic language to soften violent acts, and advantageous comparisons to minimize their perceived severity. Other critical psychological tactics include moral disengagement practices such as dehumanization, displacement of responsibility, and diffusion of responsibility. Dehumanization portrays victims as less than human, making violence morally acceptable. Moral development theories, like those from Jean Piaget and Lawrence Kohlberg, offer insights into terrorist psychology. Kohlberg suggests morality evolves in stages, emphasizing justice and fairness. Extremist groups, including some fundamentalist factions, often operate from rigid, black and white moral perspectives. Finally, terrorism doesn't occur in isolation. The psychosocial context, cultural devaluation, perceptions of injustice, inequality, and strong respect for authority often cultivates environments where terrorist ideologies flourish. Groups experiencing discrimination or injustice may view violence as justified resistance. To wrap up, terrorism is a complex phenomenon rooted deeply in psychological, cultural, and social factors. Its unique blend of symbolic, psychological, and violent elements demands continued psychological research and societal awareness. Understanding these dimensions is essential not only for prevention, but also for effectively responding to terrorism's deep societal impacts. Thanks for joining me today on Office Hours. I'm Dr. Nardi. See you next time.